Hey there, this is Farrell, and this is page 16, and that's 17 on the right, which you don't see much of just in the beginning here. I decided to sketch both pages at once, but this is Robot Todd issue 3, page 16, 17. I'm doing these pretty much for every page, starting with the covered issue 1 of this series. Hasn't come out in print yet. I'm planning on putting it out this year, starting with the issues. Hopefully I can do them monthly or whatever. This is issue 3 is almost finished here. You saw basically up to the pencil stage. I didn't really make videos me penciling it just because there's so much erasing and back and forth and different places. Like, it's really hard for me to work at my desk sometimes if I'm trying to figure stuff out. It's like better for me just to sit in like a cozy, comfy chair or something and draw. My hair's doing some interesting things there. But this is me inking. I started pretty much recorded most of the inks, and I ink with a brush. I've been inking. I used to ink these with a pen, and I don't really ink the backgrounds that much. But here's kind of a slowed down video, so you can kind of see the actual sped up a little bit from what the actual frame rate or whatever is, and but it's a little closer approximation rather than the time lapse, which you really can't see me. It's just my hand moving back and forth really fast. But figured I'd do like a slower, break up a slower bit here, working on this section, the second panel mostly, and inking. I don't know, it took me maybe like 3 hours of uninterrupted work. There was some breaks, but I feel roughly it's probably around just 3 or 4 hours of inking this one. Normally it goes a little faster, but there was like lettering and stuff, so it's like you can actually see in the second panel there on the lettering, the word balloons actually closed the tail off by accident when I was making the circles. I wasn't keeping in mind that there was going to be a tail there. Usually I try to do that all in one unbroken line, but this time I covered it. So I actually ended up I forgot to fix it with paint, so I actually ended up fixing it in Photoshop. And then on the letters too, once I had them all lettered, and it was like the very last thing I did. I didn't even record it. I scanned it in and then cleaned it up. And normally I try to keep the backgrounds of the letters to look like the paper, but I think from now on it's just too much work. I'm gonna make the background white, just cut out all the background junk and bump the levels up so you don't see any like pencil marks or anything around the letters. So you can see the difference. Here's the regular time lapse. So you can see the big difference in the speed. It's like if you look at this, you're like, wow, it's so fast. Obviously it's a time lapse and it's not me inking that fast, but it just kind of, I guess, gives you a better idea. If you go back and see the sort of slower version, it's like that's a little closer to actually how long it takes me, and usually that's why I don't do have an unbroken thing of me inking, just because it's like I have to take breaks and all that stuff. But okay, here's the print that I have going out with the September books. I just put this in here because I was doing it. I just got them in as I was working on the page and thought I would include it for you guys just to see. And this is just specifically for my Patreon subscribers who got a copy of September. And I printed 100 of them, and I signed and numbered all 100. And I'm going to send them out hopefully this week, starting today. I need to start working on them. But I have 50 left basically after I fulfill the orders. I think I have like 120 orders to the September, and I have like 50 of those prints left over. So because there's just about like 50, I think about 50 Patreon subscribers that got a copy of the book. So I have actually written on there, this is for Patreon subscribers only, so I'm just going to keep them for my Patreon subscribers. But if you want to subscribe to my Patreon, it's like $2 a month, and you can read all these Robot Todd pages. But I'm going to also, so after I get all these orders out, I'm going to, make the prints just available just for my Patreon subscribers, or maybe have them at shows or something like that, sell them. But the idea was that, okay, I'm never going to print those again. I probably print that drawing in the trade collection of the Robot Todd collection, you know, once the book comes out. But that'll be after the initial issues come out. So I'm going to do 5 issues, and then March 1st I'm starting on an issue 0 of this series, which is going to be less of sequential action. There's going to be some in there, but there's going to be less sequential stuff and more of like kind of explaining the world. You know, maybe have like a little bit of like a timeline in there, like, oh, you can read these other books, or this was, you know, mostly just about the world that Robot Todd lives in, and kind of like it's what I did with September, but it'll be more traditional comic where it'll have panels rather than just like a single panel on each page. So here I started the colors. Yeah, I don't really say much about the inks while I was inking it because it's just, you know, it's so repetitious basically, and I don't know if there was anything specific that I was doing on this page with the inks. It's one of the things that I noticed years back when I started coloring my own work, which is basically like when I started doing comic work. I mean, I've had colorists do stuff, like when I did a series for Marvel, there was a colorist and a designer, Paul Hornsmeyer, who's like another indie guy, and I don't think he's done much coloring work since then for like mainstream comics. It was kind of like a one-off for all of us. But like, you know, there's a few other things. Like I did a series for DC that had a colorist, and normally it's like when I'm doing like something for like a company, I'll have a colorist, and then when I'm doing my own work, it'll generally, you know, if I'm writing my own stuff, I'll generally want to color it too. So yeah, okay, here I pretty much have that first panel. It looks kind of done, but I still did put a lot of work into it after as I was working on the next panels. But that seemed to be the most complicated one, and since it was the first one on the page, I decided to work on that first. And you might notice that I just turned the page upside down, and a lot of times I do that only when I'm doing things with watercolor, or if there's something in particular that's really hard to ink, like those word balloons or something. Sometimes I'll flip the page around so I can get the curve of my hand in the right position, but generally when I'm watercoloring and I flip it upside down, it's so I can let the drip of the paint, you know, like the water, it'll be, you know, pretty wet when I'm working a lot of times. And if I'm doing like a bigger field, I want the paint to not have like streaks and stuff in it. So I'll just kind of let the gravity kind of pull down the bead of the watercolor, you know, so it'll be on the paper kind of sitting just on the surface. And then if I kind of, you know, tilt the board so that the bead's going down, I can just kind of drag my brush along and just kind of lightly go to all the places that I want covered up with the paint without spilling over into the word balloons. But on this page in particular, the second panel, I really overdid it. I got it a little too wet, and it started to bleed into the letters and stuff like that. So I had to go over and re-ink the word balloons on the second panel. I just got a little too sloppy, you know, wasn't as controlled as I wanted it to be. But it actually ended up coming out kind of nice. Like I thought, not to brag about my own stuff, but it was like one of those like little happy accident things. If you can see in the second panel, the background, as I was doing that, I kind of liked the way I just sort of had some of the brush and the flora in the background sort of just sketched in lightly. And I thought like, oh, that's kind of nice, sort of like, because Fern's in this sort of like biodome thing. I don't really explain like what it is, but I figure the reader can just, oh, it's science fiction, fantasy tech that's sitting there, you know, and I think I even have it written on their biodome, you know, so it's like, oh, okay, there's some kind of little force field thing that she sleeps in. You know, she's got all this tech and gear and stuff. But anyways, yeah, the happy accident in that second panel, I sort of just kept it kind of loose, and yeah, so there's the finished page, and you can see what I mean about the lettering, where I bumped up the levels more. Doing these scenes at night is like a particular challenge for me, just trying to remember with a light source. There's all my books, and Soph and I, actually, my partner, have our own store there, So Fertile Books, big cartel. I also have a Patreon, $2 a month. Thanks for watching the video. Bye.